Fuck you.
That's how you do it?
Welcome all you beautiful ladies and animals! Now, right off the mat, this is a part 2. Today we are delving again into the world of Doctor Who against the forces of Warhammer 40K. Now, if you'd like to see some of Doctor Who's most popular and famous alien armies, from the Time Lords and Daleks to the Doctor themselves, go check out the previous video up there in the corner. Today, we're doing more of the same, taking a few famous aliens that are really just dangerous on a single planet, looking at how they'd act if plopped into the grimdark future. Then, also looking at some of the Doctor's galactic-spanning evil empires and comparing their dangerous qualities to the many armies of 40K. As always, if you like this and want even more, leave a comment down below or subscribe to the channel so you're not missing out on any future videos. But without further ado, let's get into the wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff. The Carnivorous Shadows, Vashta Nerada.
Vashta Nerada.
Can we get it one more time, David?
The Vashta Nerada.
Yes, the microscopic alien spores that devour beings whole, found by the droves like a parasite onto every planet in the universe, including Earth. They are indestructible according to the Doctor, otherwise known as the smartest person in the universe. Not fire, not the void of space. When you encounter them, you're better off running as fast as you can. Think of tardigrades, the microscopic water bears. Did you know these little fat idiots are basically immune to everything? You can't burn them, you can't drown them, you can't kill them in a vacuum, and they effectively live forever. Think of that, but super smart, in a flying swarm and able to rip the flesh off your bones in a matter of seconds. Unless you're in a perfectly nanotight suit of armor, there's no escaping them. Your suit can be airtight, it can be watertight, and vacuum sealed. It doesn't matter with microscopic beings, though. Now, the thankful thing is that they are rarely aggressive or even capable of killing you. In small numbers, they're incredibly harmless, literal dust. The only reason they were so dangerous in that one episode of Doctor Who is because there was a planet-sized library that used all the natural trees where the Nerada live in order to bind their books. So, unless there's any galaxy-wide regimes in 40K that take all the natural resources of a world and completely grind them down to use in every inch of their infrastructure, they've got nothing to worry about. Oh yeah. Shit. I guess the industries of 40K might be fucked. The Tau's Earthcast, the Tyranids gobbling down all life, the Votan swallowing worlds, the Imperium's hundreds of millions of hive cities. Yeah, Vashta Nerada would become a common pest in the 40K universe. Stripped from their trees and following every race that harvested their homes, the Vashta Nerada, like a serial killer shadow just waiting for you to walk into the dark. The lone factory workers on their way home from work, the Tau being eaten alive in their battle suits, entire Titan crews devoured from within the cabin, entire battle barges of Astartes all devoured in their sleep, an empty ship arriving to join the fight, suits of empty power armor, their owners cleaned out, piloted around by the Vashta Nerada themselves. The only proper way the Imperium or any other faction could handle this is like how they handle the mass plagues of Nurgle. Nuke the planet and move on. Quarantine entire sectors and blow apart any void ship that may even be a little bit infected by these swarms. Otherwise, they'll be picked off one by one. Speaking of Nurgle, with the unstoppable hunger and devouring nature of the Vashta Nerada, there's a non-zero chance that by pure fury of stomach, they may become tainted by the warp within 40K, able to sprout up in a devastating swarm of bubonic carnivores in almost every corner across the galaxy. No way out, no way around. You have to exterminatus entire worlds before it gets too bad, and even then, never return. Otherwise, when someone comes to collect tithes, they'll be showing up to a silent world. Now, this one is interesting because we have a creature befitting the sorcerers of Tzeentch, and in the purpose of telling a good mystery, we don't really know how it works. The Midnight Entity, named simply for the diamond-crusted planet it was discovered on, is a strange, powerful, and seemingly unkillable creature of unknown origins. We know it's incredibly durable and strong, able to rip apart a craft made of heavy steel with ease. It can survive on a planet made of diamonds without eating or drinking for millennia. It doesn't have the need to, all while getting blasted by the unfiltered extonic rays of a galvanized star. Said to be so powerful that no life, not even microscopic life, could survive, but yet the entity lived on the surface for an unknowable number of years. As we see later, the Doctor returns to Midnight over 400,000 years in the future, and it's still around, still latching onto hosts and looking for a way off the planet. Now yes, that immobility does make the Midnight Entity weak to some regard. If it holds onto a host and you understand how it works, you could just shove them in a box, but that only lasts as long as the host does. Someone like Trazen could trap its host in a tesseract forever, or an Imperial agent could drop it and the poor guardsman it locked onto some backwater planet. But that's if they find out, and if it hasn't been able to jump from host to host, learning from each creature it latches onto, slowly becoming more human as it goes. Able to latch on and control the mind of even the Doctor, there is no being in 40K that it couldn't latch onto and take advantage of. Although perhaps the mechanical minds of the Necrons could be immune. We just don't know how it would work in the presence of artificial life forms, or even magical ones in the case of demons. Then also, there's no telling how it would interact with the warp. If it would become even stronger and mobile as a demon of Tzeentch, if it's even considered alive enough to be corrupted, or if it's something else entirely. In truth, while there's ways to avoid the Midnight Entity, that's all you can do. God forbid what might happen if it hopped from host to host all the way to the Golden Throne, but I'm curious what your theories might be, so just let me know down below, because this one's really just an open book. And now, the wildest card. The Master, a rogue Time Lord, a cosmic hobo, a chaos agent with a PhD in cleverness and many contrived moral gray areas. Equal parts Messiah and madman, the Master always finds a way to crawl back from damnation, no matter the odds. In the 40K universe, they're less of a villain and more of a general cataclysm. Now, with a TARDIS, catching the Master in a corner is next to impossible. They have to basically choose how to engage you in any conflict, and you can't just nuke the spaceship, because, well, we've seen other TARDISes take multiversal explosions and sort of not care. Of course, the pen is the worst enemy of the Master. They only really lose because the script says they have to. Even old writers for the show admit that the Master would come out on top if the Doctor wasn't destined to win. But, for the most part, the Master follows the same logic of warfare that the Time Lords do. They're just on their own set of rules beyond that. The Master doesn't have to square up and duke it out with you. If they really wanted to, they could go back in time and make it so you never existed. Now, stopping for a moment. If you've watched the first part of this mini-series, you'll know that everything I just said is a near-to-one description of how I introduced the Doctor last time. Because that's kind of what the Master is. The Doctor, but evil. I mean, that's part of what makes them so interesting. But while similar to the Doctor being childhood best friends and of equal convoluted importance to the script, there's a few solid differences between the two. First is the Master's version of plot armor. While the Doctor always wins any confrontation because they're on the tin, the Master, equally as absurd, just finds a way to return. Whether being executed by a previous version of themselves, atomized, or even cremated, the Master just seems to return at a random point in the future. They'd pull up on Terra, get shot, and then a few thousand years later you discover that the Master is the one leading the Tau. That, and an extra bit of unknowable endlessness, is kind of what makes them so unpredictable. Then, the second thing is that if they have access to a TARDIS and a screwdriver and all the other Whovian contrivance equipment, the Master is much like the Doctor, but where the Doctor would see the Warhammer 40K galaxy and try to fix it, if not straight out reset it to a more kind place, the Master would try, or want, to control it. They'd go back in time to be a part of the Emperor's inner circle, offering Gallifreyan tech to the Imperium. They'd go further back and become an ally of the Necrons. They'd show up and make the Votans' Ironkin as advanced as the Cybermen. They'd weave their fingers into each and every strand across 40K's history, and even help these empires grow beyond the Milky Way so their own empire could go even further. Without the Doctor to get in the way, the Master nearly took over Earth using metahumans from the far future, and he'd just do exactly that all over 40K. The only thing that would have a chance of standing in their way is chaos, but with how the Master operates by themselves, with access to endless technology and all of time and space, they'd likely just join the ranks of the Great Game, the true Dark King of 40K, empowering and dominating the forces of chaos for their own design, if not getting unwittingly wrapped up in their plots all the same. So essentially, think the Doctor all over again, but this time they're not afraid to just shoot you point blank with a supernova if you happen to be in the way. Now, if you look at these guys and are immediately reminded of Firstborn Marines or the Votan, you're not far off. Take your general Space Marine or Votan fighter in power armor, and then combine them with the abundant joy of fighting that the Orcs have. And if in the universe of 40K, you're basically looking at another force of Orcs. The Sontarans are clones. All of them. Short, stocky little potato people with advanced weapons, a love for straight combat over tactical strikes, and the capability to create 1 million soldiers in 4 minutes. Now, that's incredible, because you have a fighting force somewhere between Votan and Orc in terms of tech and raw fighting power, but reproducing at the rate of Tyranids, if not faster. If left to linger, they could produce a culture of 1,440,000,000 in a 24-hour period. Now, that's insane, even by 40K standards. Yes, hive worlds can have populations into the trillions, and even entire guard regiments are made of billions of soldiers, but that takes time. It took humanity roughly 30,000 years to get to where they are, and they've somewhat stagnated since then. The Sontarans are putting up 1.5 billion soldiers each day. And like many races in Doctor Who, access to FTL travel would mean their fleets could hide out, build an unfathomable amount of numbers, and descend on a hive world in less time it would take for any planetary governor to send out a signal for Astartes reinforcements. Could they get beaten out by an efficiently sized Astartes force? Sure, but they have the logistical advantage in spades. Even if they are overpowered by Astartes or even greater forces like the Custodes 10,000 to 1, it's hard to fight with a foe who raises 1 billion well-armed soldiers in a day. In a multitude of sources, a small band of Custodes could take on anywhere between 1 million Tyranids and a few dozen Marines, depending on the circumstance, who the protagonist is, etc. But even still, 1 billion of any force descending on a squad of Custodes would wipe them out, even if the Emperor's Guard managed to kill a few million before they went down. Just the sheer dogpile would be enough to crush any foe in the 40K galaxy. And that's before taking into consideration the crazier deep cuts like star killer weaponry that the Sontarans have. And while they aren't as absolutely domineering as the Cybermen or Daleks on a galactic scale, they'd fit right in with Warhammer 40K, kind of like a strange mishmash of Orcs, Tau, and Votan all at once that any faction aside from Orcs, Tyranids, and Chaos would struggle against. Oh yeah, they'd probably also see a lot of those billions of soldiers fall to chaos. A sense of duty and honor in combat is a core to their culture, right up Khorne's driveway. The whole idea of, I'm gonna punch you hard in the face rather than stabbing you in the back, is one of the main pillars of Sontaran warfare that would likely see them becoming Khornate. If not creating their own chaos gods like Gork and Mork, the prime Sontar, seeing their thumb-like soldiers wage war on a galactic scale. In the universe of Doctor Who, the Sontarans are big fish in an ocean of wacky sci-fi bullshit. In 40K, they become a very big fish in a half-decent sized pond. Still a lot of craziness, but they're still able to defend themselves from a lot of the other big players. Likely not to the extent they'd ever conquer the galaxy, I just don't think they're smart enough for that. They'd be more likely to fall into a grand heresy, but they'd very quickly become a big player alongside the Imperium, Tyranids, and Chaos, probably pushing a lot of the smaller Xenos factions out of the food chain. Now, this goofy villain of Doctor Who is the strongest I've spoken about yet. A being from before the chaos of the Time Lords, an entity from a different dimension who was able to materialize into reality once it was stabilized by thoughts and rules. Sound familiar? A creature of unknowable origins, of unknowable ages that controls the very ground it walks on just for a good laugh and to fuck around with you. Sound even more familiar? It's Tzeentch. It's just Tzeentch. The Toymaker is just Tzeentch if he was able to manifest into reality. Like, just look at this.
Smiling, dancing, everything is free. All you need is positivity.
You can't kill the guy, or your bullets are getting changed and warped into set decorations. You can't approach him, or you're joining a ball pit. The only way to technically beat him is to challenge the Toymaker to a game within his own separate universe, and then beat him at that game, which temporarily would give you all his powers. In Doctor Who, it took 2 doctors to pull this off. For anyone else, good luck. Now, the good thing is that he's confined to the rules of the game. So if you challenge him to a 1v1 in COD, he can't just install an aimbot, unless you do it first, because if his opponents cheat, it just becomes a new rule to the game that he will take full advantage of. So we have this eldritch game master who existed in time before time, has done nothing but engross himself in games and puzzles, and is able to best pretty much anybody in the universe at whichever game he plays. Now, the good thing here for 40K is that he doesn't want to conquer or exterminate all of life. Not exactly. Otherwise, he could do so very easily. His goal is to turn everyone and everything into his own personal playthings by besting them in games of wits. Now, for your average Imperial citizen who can barely read and write, he's sweeping Y. Even most Astartes would fall to him, if not all of them. His biggest issue will be the characters in 40K that are the smartest, the kind of creatures who can plot and plan devoid of the regular flow of time. A few Eldar maybe, Necrons perhaps, or even the Chaos Gods themselves. But anyone who works under the standard laws of time would be fallible to lose his game, even the Emperor of Mankind, at least before the chair. He was smart, but foresight was explicitly one of his weak points. And even then, the Toymaker has one glaring leg up on Chaos. He exists. No warp realm, no demonic anchor. He's here, and he can leave whenever he wants. He can play and dance all day long, and the Chaos Gods can never touch him. A being able to move across all of space and time at the snap of his fingers, opening separate dimensions and even singing a live studio performance of the Spice Girls to an audience that he torments. Even if he granted an audience to Tzeentch and the two played the most convoluted game of multi-dimensional chess to ever exist, the game itself would last forever. And even then, if he was trapped and locked away like he was after encountering the Doctor, he'd take millions upon millions of years to degrade enough to even be considered something approaching dead. Humanity would burn out and all the stars in the Milky Way would turn to dust before he even began to decay. So either way, the Toymaker would at the very least outlive all of the life in 40K. And for today, my dear viewers, is all of our matchups. And even the Toymaker himself speaks of a being to be scared of, so there's definitely more out there in the Doctor Who universe to come back to. So let me know down below if you'd be interested in the third and probably final episode of whatever this is. But that'll be it for us today. As always, a wonderful thank you to all the glorious patrons and members who support the channel. If you'd like to be among them, you can join for just $1 a month and get videos early, some behind the scenes, and even ask questions that will be in the videos themselves. But for now, stay cool, have fun, and be awesome. Buster out.